Hi guys, it's Vicky. I'm back again, and this is part 2 of, I guess, my little video series on how I lead up in the process of doing a layout before I even pull papers and products. Let's get started on part 2. And in case you didn't watch part 1, I have stamps out here so you'll have something to look at while I'm talking. If you want to see one of these stamps stamped out, let me know. If you want to know exactly what kind of stamp it is, brand or anything, let me know. I'll be glad to answer that too. Anyway, guys, I don't have a craft room. I actually scrap at my family room coffee table. The family room is kind of casual, and my coffee table is a hot mess. I mean, it needs to be refinished and everything, but I don't worry about that, and I'm not going to replace it yet because this is where I want to scrap for the time being. So I don't worry if I spill a little paint or a little adhesive gets on the table. I try to get it up, and if it doesn't come up, oh well. We won't be entertaining the president and his wife anytime soon. Everybody that knows me knows I'm a scrapper, and this is where I do my thing. So anyway, since I am scrapping at the family room coffee table, and I know some of you mentioned that you scrap at the kitchen table, I want to try to keep my mess as small as possible. That's almost a losing battle. Even if you do have a craft room that you can scrap in, you might want to think about some of these ideas, because maybe you can't always get away from the hub of your family and into your craft room and shut the door. I mean, I know when our kids were little, I had to stay within eyeshot of them. There would have been no way I could have went into a room upstairs when they were downstairs, or, downstairs when they were upstairs. I had to be close by. Someone did. Anyway, maybe these ideas and tips will give you some ideas. And you can go into your scrap room, pick some items that is leading up to actually putting a full layout together. Something that I do as I'm preparing and getting things in my mind of how this layout is going to come together and what products and items I'll need to pull to do the layout, I make notes. Now, here's a little sample. And I actually make a couple different kind of notes, but like, here's a Post-it note. And you'll see on here, it says "So Special on Stick. Measure tape on stick." That probably makes no sense to you, but what it means is I have a stamp that says "So Special," and I may want to stamp that on a popsicle stick and then put it on my layout. Measure tape on stick. I also have a stamp, and it looks like a measuring tape, and I thought about stamping it with VersaFine. I've heard VersaFine works best if you're stamping on wood, so I may want to stamp that measuring tape stamp onto a wooden popsicle stick for my layout. Here you'll see a rough draft of a layout. Now, I will refer back to this little note and the others I'm going to show you here in a minute when it comes time for me to actually make the process video for Nicole, who is Scrapology, and she's having the layout challenge, which kind of got my mind working about this part of the layout. Anyway, here's another type of note. And you'll see I've just kind of put together a rough draft of some ideas. So that is my notes on how I'm going to lay my products out. I will also make a shopping list, that's quote marks, air quotes, on what products do I need to pull out of my craft area. Now, I keep my crafty stuff all in my laundry room. So again, I hopefully want to get in there and pull out just what I need so I don't have a huge mess going on in the family room. Also, so I'm not carting and carrying a lot of stuff back and forth. So by writing out my little shopping list, that helps me to cut down on bringing things out that I won't need. It also helps me to remember what I need to get when I go into the laundry room to pull my supplies. Because listen, when you're starting a layout, you know you need background paper, you need accent papers. Do I need buttons? And do I want the blue buttons or the green buttons? Do I want October afternoon buttons, or do I want, Jenny Bolin buttons? So by writing these things down, it helps me to remember what I need to bring out of that room before I sit down and settle in and actually start the fun part of putting the layout together. Now, there's sometimes I just get into my laundry/crafty area and I just browse for things. I don't really like to do it that way. That means I'm usually pulling things out and I'm just going in blindly. I may go in there browsing and in my head I'm thinking, okay, I need something red, or I need embellishments for a layout that has a vintage tone. And that's not my favorite way to approach my process part of doing a layout. And I'll tell you, I wish my products were better displayed. I see those of you who have the pegboard on your wall, and like you have all your girly rubber stamps on one hook and you have ribbons on another. Boy, I wish I had that, and I think that's a great idea, because we've all said this: if you can see it, you're going to use it. But unfortunately, not all of us have pegboards or a room devoted entirely to crafting. And listen, I hate to sound like the little waif girl who doesn't have a crafty room, because we have a guest room here, and frankly, we could turn that into a crafting room for me. Usually, if we have guests, it's the type of guest that are casual. If the kids are here to spend the night, or, my son has somebody to spend the night, listen, they could sleep on the couch. But I kind of like having that extra bedroom. And I just haven't had the motivation to get in there and turn it into a craft room. And truth be told, I still like to sit here in the hub of the house so I can see everything that's going on. I just don't know about being upstairs and kind of away from the middle of the house. Another part of my list that I make is going to have things that's rolled through my mind to do on the layout. Let's see. I did have a note like that made. Oh, here it is. Okay, so here's one of those type of notes. I don't even know if you can see it, but you'll see across the top of this paper it says problems. Now, this is when I was sitting here with my coffee the other morning, and I had finally figured out what picture I wanted to use, and that's the point I was at. I had figured out what picture to use, and I did have in mind my title, and I had in mind one embellishment I wanted to use. So at this point, my notes read problems. In the photograph that I wanted to use, my grandson is wearing a white t-shirt, and the paper products that I had in mind to use and the embellishments, like the little chipboard figures, they were more of a beigey color. You know how sometimes things, the background's not white, it's more of an ivory tone or very, very, very off-white, and it just doesn't look right mixing white with that color. That's what was going on. So you'll see I've got that across the top. I wrote down on this page what I want to do on the page. I do need to journal. I have a lot to tell about this particular picture. So I know I need to leave room on this layout to journal. I don't do that often. It's very important for this layout. So I want to talk about how my grandson calls my son's best friend Uncle Goose, and I gotta journal that. That kind of gives you an idea what I'm writing down as I take my notes that I was talking about. One thing I do when I'm creating my notes, that's when I usually have time to catch up on some of my YouTube videos. I like to hope that while I'm doing my notes, I might see a technique or a layout that just has something that I can see and say, oh gosh, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that or something like that. And you know, the notes would come in handy too for those of you who have young kids, or maybe you work from home, or you just get interrupted through the day. By taking notes, get yourself a pad of paper that's devoted to your scrappy stuff and jot notes down in there. There's many a times on, let's say, on Pinterest, I'll see a super duper cute layout and I'll repin it and put it in my favorites and all that. And then if I'm around my notepad, I'll write down in the notepad, remember, extra super duper cute layout on Pinterest. It's red, it's blue, it has clouds, would be perfect for pictures of Nate, pictures of the girls in my family, and because there's so much information out there between videos and magazines. So you come upon things and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. And you put it in your favorites, but if your favorites, whether it's on the computer or on YouTube, oh my gosh, I have hundreds of favorites. And I forget about them often. So by keeping yourself a notepad, that helps with that as well. Before I'll go in to pull everything like embellishments, twine, ribbons, paint, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I will just go in to the laundry room and pull only papers that may work for my photo or my idea, whatever I have in stone to this point. Because that's what I was saying before. Sometimes the picture is my jumping off point. The technique is my jumping off point. So now I'm going on to the second part. And what kind of papers will I use? What kind of cardstock? And sometimes I'll just pull papers or paper stacks only, bring them in with me to the family room, and go through them. If it's a picture that I want to use, I'll lay that picture, I'll take that photograph and lay it on the papers and see, you know, what's catching my eye, what feels right. Again, this is a great idea if you've got kids or things going on where you can't escape to the scrap room to do your whole project. I don't know about you, but for me, even a single one-page layout, if something has not just really took me by storm and I know that's what I want to do exactly, and I know what picture I want to use, I know what papers I'm going to use, and I know what embellishments I'm going to use, sometimes that happens. I'll just see a picture, how it's going to fall into place. But I would say that happens maybe 30 to 40% of the time, if I'm lucky, and then the other 50 to 60% of the time, I'm sitting there with one thing as an inspiration point, and the others have to come together. I have to give it some thought. So I don't have a full 2 hours or 3 hours to work on a layout. A single page layout, gosh, there's been times when it's actually taken me 2 or 3 days to do the layout because I'm getting stuck. Maybe my mojo's low, or I'm just not feeling the layout. But most of the time, from start to finish, if start is including this, what I'm talking about now, the thought process of what you're going to pull, and then the procedure of making your layout, most of the time, that's about a 2-hour process. You know, once I get it in my head, I want layered papers here, I want embellishments over here, I'm going to do banners, I'm going to use stickers. Once that happens, then it probably takes me about 45 minutes to an hour to put the layout together. So anyway, I will go in and pull papers. Usually my October Afternoon, Pebbles, American Craft, Pink Paisley, my designer papers. But you know, every now and then I will make myself pull some of my old paper stacks, because shame on me, I do not give the right proper honor to my old paper stacks. Paper Studio, Me and My Big Ideas, do you remember them? Die Cuts with a View. You know, there's some nice patterns in those paper stacks, but that's not my first go-to choice of paper. But recently, my main focus has been trying to use up my really old products. I'm trying to get them out of their packages and out of that craft room and into albums. Like I said before, there's not such bad patterns and papers in those stacks. I never even knew about My Mind's Eye or Jilly Bean, but I've said this one before, I've become quite the paper snob. And you know how I ever even found out about designer papers was from Miss Zoe, who runs the YouTube Layout Hop. I actually participated in, I think it was their second or third hop. And back then, she asked for the participants in the hop to use paper that was kind of newly released. And I'm thinking, what is she talking about, newly released collections? So I watched the previous or the prior hop that I didn't participate in, and I was like, well, what in the world is My Mind's Eye or October Afternoon? And I got on to some of the online stores and stuff. Keep in mind, I had just got on YouTube a couple of months before, so I had just found out about 2 peas in a bucket. So I get on there and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at these gorgeous papers. And I never look back, but I'm going to make myself turn around now and use some of those paper stacks that I bought. Shame on me. Well, I'm actually using those paper stacks more in this past month than I probably have in a year and a half. Or, you know, since my YouTube hop back in May or June of last year. Bring those paper stacks into my coffee table, and I see if there's anything I can use from them. Then I go to my paper collections. It used to be the other way around. Another little tip I can give you. If I happen to stumble onto a paper or several papers that's very appealing to me, or I'm looking at it and I'm like, gosh, I forgot about that. Isn't that cute? And maybe it's not right for the picture or the layout I'm working on at that moment. What I will do is go on and pull that paper, or if it's an embellishment I've stumbled upon or something like that, I will pull that and lay it to the side, and then for my next layout, there's my starting point. You know, maybe I've pulled blue and green paper and it has circles. So I go to my pictures and I try to think about if any pictures or photographs come to mind that I could use with that paper. And if not, then I will go and pull different boxes of photographs down and I thumb through them. Again, that can be one of those things that you do when you only have a half hour or an hour. What I do is keep my photographs in those photo boxes that you can pick up at Michael's for like $5 or $10 when they're on sale. On the outside of those boxes, I will write either what year the pictures are from. Now, because I have photographs and I'm not quite sure of the exact year, or as I go back, because guys, I have pictures from like 1950. I don't have a whole box of 1950 photos. So the way that I label those boxes, I have 2011, photos from 2012, and those years are on the outside of that box. But I also have a box that's titled Christmas, old Christmases. Now, old will mean like when our kids were little or when I was little. I also have a box titled Vacations, Florida. We used to live in Florida and we've traveled to Florida quite a bit. So in that box are vacation photos, pictures from Florida when we lived there. I have probably about 8 to 10 of those boxes, and they're all labeled with different titles. So it's not a perfect system, believe me, but I pretty much, if I'm thinking about, oh, this paper would look great with the kids when they were monsters for Halloween, I know where to go and grab those pictures, and most likely where they're going to be. So now let's say I'm looking for things for this layout that I'm working on, but then I stumble across papers that I might want to use for another layout just because I like the papers. What I will do at this point, when I'm going in to get my embellishments for the current layout, I'll kind of keep an eye out for anything that would match those other papers that caught my eye. And you know what? When that happens, that's how you can get 6 pages, 6 layouts done in 2 or 3 days. You get on a layout roll because you have things lined up. Your mojo is just thumping away because you're excited to use that paper and other items that you've stumbled upon. So I love when that happens. Okay, so now we have our notes. We kind of have an idea of how our layout's going to go. And now we're getting down to pulling the items. I'll do another video for Scrapology when we get to that, and that's where we're at after doing the notes and after having your coffee and looking at your pictures and picking your own brain to see what way you want to go on a layout. This starts to be productive period. I won't say it's the fun part because I enjoy all of these things. There's really not a part of scrapbooking that I don't like. I just hate when I really get stuck in a muck and I've lost my mojo, or when you hit a brick wall, you know you want to use this picture and you just can't find anything to go with it. Nothing's working. Or you just don't know how to lay out the photo, you know, the whole layout. Like, you know what I mean? You don't know whether to make it look like a little scene. You don't know whether to break it into quadrants. You don't know whether to kind of make it look, you know, very artsy with layers of paper. Oh, that I think for me is the the part that's most difficult, but it's part of scrapbooking, and I have to say I love scrapbooking. Now let me touch on a few things that I do and I think about in my process that I may have forgot to mention earlier, or I just didn't know how to stick it into that topic I was talking about. I had a video and of the second one, and I tried to upload it and it was bad, so I had to redo it. So then I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, now I forget what I said and what I didn't say. So anyway, it's so much easier than it sounds here. It does sound like a lot of process, but it's an enjoyable process. And again, the reason I'm doing this video is maybe there's just one little thing that I do you didn't think of. I also am thinking about people who are thinking about scrapbooking. You know, I thought about starting to do scrapbook layouts for, I bet, a year before I actually dived in. And what prevented me from doing layouts is, number one, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have so much to buy. I've got to buy a cutter thingy. I've got to buy those papers. You got to buy adhesives. And I used to watch the scrap fairs on QVC, and I just loved the products they had. I've always loved paper and pens and photographs, strangely enough. But I'd watch those fairs and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, where do you even start? And how expensive it would be. So anyway, I'm hoping that maybe somebody who is just starting YouTube or who is just starting scrapping will benefit from this. And maybe even some of you lifers might hear something here that would help you. I mean, I love anything scrapbooking. I do. I could sit here and watch YouTube videos for 100 hours straight, as long as somebody would bring me a Pepsi and a couple little treats now and then. And I think I mentioned this, but I took myself a note. See, me and my notes. I do keep a notebook so that if something pops in my mind that I want to do, or I want to buy, or I want to make, I jot it down in that notebook. Randomly, I'll go back and browse through my little scrappy notebook just to see if there's anything in there that triggers my creative juices. I put tabs on my crafting magazines. And I don't know if I have one here. I don't, but let's say you've got Creating Keepsakes magazine and you're browsing through it. Get you some Post-it notes and put a little tab in there just like this, you know, if you see a layout or a technique or something that you'd like to do. In fact, what I will do is, if I'm looking through that magazine and I have a picture or something in the forefront of my mind I want to do, and there's something in that magazine that would work for that layout, I'll put my sticky note on the top. If it is a cute idea, but I don't necessarily have a photograph or the products to do the project yet, I'll put my sticky note on the side. And if my sticky note is down at the bottom, then that means it's a technique I want to look at, or an article I want to read when I have time. So wherever my little sticky note is placed means something. So for Kathy, who is Bugaboo 88, oh, is it 88 or is it 58? Why do I keep saying 88? It's 58. Kathy, to directly answer your question, my process of putting a layout together, and what I'm going to say now is everything I've talked about in a nutshell. See, it could have took me maybe 2 minutes to do this video, and it took me 2 hours. Anyway, the number one thing I do is find my inspiration point. And that can be a photo or photographs. It could be a product. it could be a technique. Like, I want to stamp, or I want to do my Copics. It could be that I have a story that needs to be told, like the kids at Kings Island, or Mama Day. Seasonal items would definitely fall under that category. Vacation pictures, a great day by the pool, and I'll be sitting here and I'll think, before the memory gets too old, I want to talk about this or that. Or maybe I'm just in the mood. Maybe I'm in a sentimental mood and I want to pull pictures of my son when he was little, or pictures of my family. So that's another inspiration point. Sometimes a technique. Did I say that already? Like a technique? I think I did. It's like I'm just dying to stamp, and that'll get me going. A title in my head. Sometimes I'll see a layout on YouTube or in a magazine, and I like the way the pictures are placed. That'll get my inspiration going, and I would consider that a jumping off point. And then last but not least is to pull your products. Now, once I have those things pulled, my items, I lay out either my 12 by 12 cardstock or my 12 by 24 cardstock. So if I'm doing a 2-page layout, I lay them both out in front of me. I've got my pictures. I've got embellishments. If I'm going to do any type of paper piecing or Cricut cuts, whatever, I'm going to have those all prepared for me. And now I just move these things around on the paper. And I think that's what most of us do. You know, we'll lay down this, and that, and we're like, okay, that just don't look right. And you bring in something new, or you toss out something you thought you were going to use for sure. This is, you know, where you're really getting to the narrowed down decisions. And this is always the toughest part for me, is I start to cut in to my papers, or my borders, or I peel the back off of ABC sticker, or I put my thickers down on the paper. I always struggle with this part of really buying into the layout. I will sit there and hold that piece of paper for 10 minutes sometimes going, do I really want to use this paper on this layout? And I was going to save it for something special. I just have to tell myself, you know what? You bought it to use it. What's the worst that can happen here? You cut it and you cut it wrong, or you end up wrecking it and you can't use it. I still don't throw it away, and keep it in mind, because maybe I can use it on another layout. But that's probably the hardest part for me, is gluing it down, buying the farm, so to speak. So anyway, guys, after that, you're about to have a layout finished for your scrapbook album. And hopefully, somewhere, sometime, someone is going to look at that layout and think what a good job you've done. Now, my next video after this will be the process video. I'm going to go pull my items that I'm going to use for Nicole's challenge, and that video is going to be much shorter. I hope you enjoyed this. I would love to, I said this before already, but I would love to hear from you guys what you're doing, what gets your mojo going. How do you approach this? Do you take notes? And what do your notes look like? I would love that. I love hearing how you guys scrapbook. You already know I love seeing your layout, so I'm one scrappy girl, aren't I? It's my favorite thing to do, almost. No, it is. Listen, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I hope you've been able to see this set of stamps. And if you have any questions about them, don't hesitate to ask me. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.